Welcome to part 2 of the cover letter training brought to you by the Montana Department of Labor and Industry and Job Service Montana. This training will cover the actual creation of your cover letter in Microsoft Word. Let's jump right into the actual writing of the document. We'll delve into each of the following sections: the heading and greeting, 3 different paragraphs, the assertive closing, and finally we'll end with spell check and save. The first section, heading and greeting, will include your contact information, an automatically updated date, the recipient's address line, and a professional greeting. Cover letters will be written in a business letter format. However, it's best to use the same header as your resume so that they match and they look professional. You might consider choosing a color and a design theme that matches the potential employer's company colors if possible. We'll cover 2 different options for inserting your contact information. The first option assumes that you already have created a resume and you can reuse the same contact header as at the top center of your page. The second option is to merely type your contact information as you would in a business letter, like a return address. I'll show you how to do both. If you have created a resume, following the training tutorial in resume writing course, you can follow these simple steps to reuse the header for your cover letter. If you want to reuse the resume header, you will need to find your Word document resume. So let's assume that this is on our desktop or in a flash drive. We would click the File Explorer, which is this little manila envelope down here. We'll click that to open our document area. And then on the left side over here are all the different areas, and you can click to open the desktop, or if it was a flash drive, you would find that down here like that. And then we're just going to find our resume wherever we saved that resume. Obviously didn't save it there. There it is. Double click to open that document. The first thing that we want to do is turn off autosave. If you're working in Microsoft Office 365, autosave is a function that by default will come on, and as soon as you make a change, you're going to lose your entire resume. So you don't want to do that, which is we're going to reuse the top, but we want to make sure we still have our resume. So up here in the upper left corner, you'll see autosave is turned on currently. So we're just going to click that toggle to turn it off. Now from here we can go to either the bottom of the document and come up, or we could just come from here and go down. However we want to select all the text underneath the heading. With all that selected, we're going to click delete on our keyboard. And now it's ready. It can be a cover letter. So we'll go up to the File tab, come down to Save As, go down to Browse. We'll choose where we want to save it. We want to save it in our desktop. Make sure it looks right up here. It's going to name it whatever it was named. We want to change that to say, let's call it Cover Letter Master. That way we can use this anytime that we want to create a new cover letter. And click on Save. That should change the name up at the top, Cover Letter Master, and now it's just got that heading that we can use and start typing our cover letter. And if we come back here, if we close out of this document and come back into our Jobby resume, let's make sure it's still a resume. There we go. It's still there with all the information. You are welcome to view the resume writing in MS Word training video to learn how to create a stunning resume and then reuse the contact header as we just showed you. If you're starting from scratch and interested in creating a dynamic contact header on your cover letter, you can follow these instructions. Creating a document header from scratch. We'll open a blank Word document. You can click the W in your taskbar to open a document. If you do not have Word pinned to your taskbar, you can click on the Start key in the left bottom corner and then scroll through the apps to the W section and click on Word. Here's our blank Word document. We want to type our name and our contact information on the first 2 lines of the text. First, we're going to choose a different style to make our font be big and bold and really stand out on the page. That's in the Home tab. In the Styles section, you have these styles to choose from. Title works really well for the name, although you could use heading 1 as well if you prefer. I'll use title today. Type in the name. Type enter to get to the next line. And then just go down a style. So if you chose title, choose heading 1. If you chose heading 1, choose heading 2. I'll choose heading 1. Type in the city, state, the phone number, the email, and maybe even a LinkedIn URL if you have that to share. I'm going to type in the city, state first. Two-letter abbreviation for the state, no need to put the period. Do 1 space so that we have enough room here, and then we're just going to put some kind of a dividing symbol. You could use a circle or square that you would find in the Insert menu, which is in the Insert tab. Far right side, we have a symbol button. You could click that, go down to More Symbols. And the wingdings option here has a lot to choose from. You would want to keep it professional, so circles or squares, but there's quite a few options to choose from. I'm going to click cancel because I'm going to show you how to do a vertical bar instead, which is really easy to enter. A vertical bar on your keyboard is Shift and the backslash key, which is right under your backspace key. So Shift with that key is going to give you a vertical bar, and then I'll just do another space. Next, I'll put the phone number. You could put phone number or email, whichever you prefer. And formatting for a phone number is going to be parenthesis, number, 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 parenthesis, space, number, 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 dash, number, 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 number. Now we'll add another vertical bar. So do a space, the Shift plus that button that's right underneath your backspace, which is the vertical, the backslash. The Shift with the backslash will give you a vertical bar, and another space, and then type in the email. And we'll hit enter to let it know that we're ready to move on to the next line. Notice that hyperlinks our email address, which is going to make it kind of hard to read depending on what we choose for a theme. In the resume, we definitely wanted to not have that hyperlinked because of applicant tracking systems. It makes it difficult for them. If we want to remove the hyperlink, we simply right-click over the top of the hyperlink and choose Remove Hyperlink. Next, we're going to make some adjustments to our font. We want our name to be the biggest font on the page. So we're just going to select that information, go to the Home tab, and in the Font section, we've got a couple different options up here. With this A with the up arrow is going to increase it by 1 size, by 1 point, or 1 step. If we do the A with the down arrow, it's going to decrease. So we're just going to click the A with the up arrow a couple times. It's up to 48 now, and you can always adjust that later if you need more room on your page or anything like that. We could also change this second line if we wanted to. I'm going to wait and do the design next and see if I feel like I need to change that or not. So we'll click the Design tab at the top, and we're going to change Theme first, which is on the far left side, and you can just hover over those to see what it's going to look like. It changes the font and the spacing. Well, where was that one? I kind of like that. It's nice and clean, droplet. Once we choose a theme, these different document formatting options also change. And then if you hover over those options, you can see the different options that you have and how those change the way that it looks on the page. Sometimes it doesn't want to do a little preview, and if you have issues getting it to do a preview, if you click into the document and then back up here, it should work for you. You can also click this last little button here, and then we can kind of see all the different options in front of you if there are more options to see. I think I will choose that one today. Next, we'll change the colors if you like. This is where you could customize the colors to match the business that you're applying for. If you wanted to do that, choose their colors. You can find that pretty easily on their website. Again, I have to click inside here to make it, there we go, now it'll let me preview it. In the resume, we changed the margins on purpose so that the top margin was smaller than the others. The others we kept at the 1-inch margin as long as you have room for all the information. And so we'll go ahead and change that. If you go to the Layout tab at the top, and then in the Margins button on the far left, to change the margins to being something different, we would not just want to change all of them to 0.5. We want to keep the rest to 1-inch margins. So we're going to come down to Custom Margins and change just the top. So we'll leave these all at 1, but then the top one will just change that little drop down until it gets to 0.5, a half of an inch, and click OK. That brings it up to where we want it to be at the top. And we might want to center these the top two lines of text. So we'll just select those, come to the Home tab, and center those. At this point, if you wanted to, make any changes to your font, you could certainly come in here and make that a hair bigger. As long as it fits on one line, it looks pretty good. If you prefer to create your cover letter using the professional business letter style and you simply want to enter your contact information as a return address in the upper left quadrant of the page, you can follow these directions. Having decided that you're going to create your cover letter and use contact information just as like a return address on a regular professional business letter, you're just going to start with a blank Word document. So we'll click the W to open the Word, or you can, if you don't have Word pinned to your taskbar, you can go to the Start key in the lower left corner and then just scroll through those apps until you get to Word, which these should be alphabetized, and click to open a Word document. The first thing that we'll want to do is change the font if we want, and the spacing. The font is going to be in the Home tab and in the font section, and you can change this to being something different. We want it to stay professional. You want it to be easy to read. New Times Roman, Times New Roman, or Arial is good. There's a lot of different options that are acceptable. I'll just choose New Times Roman. Anywhere from 10 to 12 font is a good place to be. I'll do 12 for now, and we can always come back in and change it later if we have too many words on the page and need some extra space. Another thing that we would probably want to change is the spacing. On a professional business letter, we want to have it single spaced, the entire document single spaced, and then we want to have a double spaced, an extra line in between each paragraph. The easiest way to make sure that it's lined up like that is just to change the whole document to being single spaced and then have Microsoft not add the extra spaces between the paragraphs. And that's because it'll automatically add those anytime you hit enter. It thinks you have a new paragraph, and it'll add more space in between each section just for readability, but we're going to do that manually. So to make those changes, we're going to go to the Home tab and the Paragraph section, and then we'll come up into this little corner button, and it looks like a square with a little arrow in it. It's in the corner of the Paragraph section. Click that button, and we'll change the line spacing here in the center of the page to saying single. And we want to check this little box that says do not add space between paragraphs of the same style, because we're going to do that manually. Otherwise, our addresses, our return address and our recipient address will be very spaced out, and we'll have to fix that, and we'll just have to make sure that each one of those paragraphs is set up correctly. So we'll just do that on our own. We'll click OK here. Now, if you wanted to change your margins, you could do that as well. I suggest starting with 1-inch margins, which is the default on these newer versions of Microsoft Office. If you do need to change that at a later time, if you have too much stuff to fit on the page or something, you can go down to 0.75 on each. That's still acceptable. We'll start with 1-inch margins. But if you needed to change it, it's in the Layout tab at the top. And the margins button is over here on the left hand side. And then you would just make those changes by either going to custom margin or by choosing a different margin option. But we'll leave it like it is. The first thing that we're going to do is to type our name. So we'll type the name. Hit enter to go down to the next line. Put your mailing address. Hit enter to go to the next line. The city and state. Just 2 letters for the state, no need to do a period, 2 spaces, and the zip code. You can enter your email address and phone number, whichever one you like, or both. You want to give them the way that's best for them to reach out to you. And the phone number formatting should be parenthesis, number, parenthesis, space, number, dash, number. Whoops, do not have an underscore there though. And then we will have an extra blank line between that and the greeting line. So we will just hit enter twice. Having completed the contact information, we'll move on to the date. The recommended option for your contact information is to use the same heading as your resume. So we'll use the contact header example going forward. Here are some formatting specifics to keep in mind as you type up that cover letter. All text should be left aligned, including the paragraphs. That indented first line thing is completely outdated. Date formatting should be the month written out and then the date, a comma, and the entire year. Spacing should be single spaced paragraphs with double spaces between each paragraph. There should be 2 lines between both the date and the address, and the last paragraph and the closing. We'll add 4 lines between the closing and your type name for a handwritten signature. And we'll refer to this slide again as we move into the different sections of the letter. We will follow these instructions to insert the automatically updated date in your cover letter. Regardless of whether you choose to reuse your header from your resume document or one that you created the document header, we want, with our cursor right underneath our contact information, we're going to set up our page right from the very top to be single spaced. So we're going to come into the Home tab and the paragraph section, and this little line and paragraph spacing button, we're going to click that and choose 1.0. Now our document should be single spaced. The next thing that we want to enter is the automatic updated date. In Microsoft Word, if we choose the right button, it will automatically update it every time we open this. We did want to have an extra space between the contact information and our date, so we'll type another enter to bring us down a space. And then we're going to come up to the Insert tab at the top, go over to the right side in the text section. There's a button called Date and Time that looks like a calendar with a clock in front of it. We're going to choose the formatting option on the left side here. We like the third one. The business letter format is the month spelled out. the date, comma, with the entire year printed. And then down in the lower right hand corner, there's a box that says update automatically. Make sure that that checkbox is checked and click OK. And then our specific formatting for a business letter is that we need 2 spaces following a date, so we will type the enter twice. We're ready to move on to the recipient's address. Next, we'll type the employer's address, or that recipient address, with an extra line between it and the greeting line. We'll simply type the recipient address information to start. If you know the name of the person that is in charge of hiring, we'll definitely want to type in their name and their title here. If you don't know, you can just go right to the company name. If you know the title, you can put it behind the person's name with a comma, or if it doesn't fit there very well, you can sure put it on the next line as well. Type enter to move down to the next line. Type in the company name. Enter the mailing address. Enter the town, comma, the 2-digit abbreviation for state, no period, 2 spaces, and the zip code, and enter. You'll notice that the address here is spaced really wide, and that's because Microsoft Office thinks every time that we click enter that we want to start a new paragraph, and it adds a little bit of space between paragraphs for readability. This is normally good and looks good on our page, but when we're doing something like an address, we need to skinny that up. So we will select the text that is the problem here, so all the way from John Smith to the zip code. We're going to go to the Home tab at the top. In the paragraph section, there's a little corner button here, and it's the paragraph settings button. It looks like a square with an arrow in it right in the corner. Click that, and we get these other options here. And in the center area, we want to check this box here that says do not add space between paragraphs of the same style. Check that box and then click OK. There we go. That looks much better. The last part of the heading and greeting section is the salutation, or the greeting itself. You may remember from the cover letter essentials training that the greeting line that you choose really does matter. Do not use "to whom it may concern" or "dear sir" or "madam." Those options are completely outdated. The best case scenario is "Dear Mr. Smith" in this case. You can use "Dear Hiring Manager" or "Hiring Team" if you do not have the name of the individual. But don't guess the sex of the person. If you're unsure at all, then just use their full name instead. So the one that's starred is the best case scenario, and the one that's bolded there, the "Dear Mr. or Ms. Smith," you would not want to use Mrs. Just because you just wouldn't be sure, you would use Ms. Next is the greeting line. Now, the rest of the document will just want to make sure that each of the paragraphs are single spaced and that there is an extra line of spacing between each one of the paragraphs. So here we just changed that to saying do not add an extra line, so we're right snug up against that. So we'll just type in an extra enter here. When we get to the end of our letter, the last paragraph before our closing will have 2 different lines of text between there. Next, we'll do the salutation, or the greeting line. The best case scenario, if you know their name and their sex, would be to put "Dear Mr." or "Dear Miss." Ms. We would not put Mrs. We do know that this is a male, so we can put "Dear Mr. Smith." If you don't know, worst case scenario, you could put "Dear Hiring Manager" or "Dear Hiring Team" or something like that. We end this with a colon. So "Dear Mr. Smith," colon, and an extra space after which you can see it gives us a little bit extra space there. It doesn't skinny it up quite as much. Next, we will cover the different paragraphs that you will include in your cover letter. You'll write an introduction, a body paragraph, or actually a section, and a conclusion. We'll review the specifics of each of those in the upcoming slides. We will add an extra line of spacing between each paragraph with 2 extra lines before that closing line. Some things to remember about the introduction itself. We want to make sure that we include the reason that you're writing to them. You want to clearly identify the position that you're applying for. Mention how you learned about that opening, and if you went somewhere like Indeed to find that opening, follow that to their company website so that you can refer to that if they've posted it there. They always like to know their website is working. Make sure that you're enthusiastic, that you show you're excited to apply for the job, because that introductory paragraph is going to be what they remember. So make sure that you start strong so that you're remembered. The body itself, the first step is to decide what kind of a format. We went over these in the cover letter essentials training as well. You might review that. Do you want a paragraph style, bullet points, the make the match, or maybe the T format, which is where you use the table to show a direct correlation between their requirements and your skills and abilities? You'll want to make sure, no matter which format you choose, that you clearly communicate your unique qualifications, you align your experience and education with the specific job description, and of course, don't repeat information from your resume. You want new information. And in your conclusion, you want to make sure that you summarize your qualifications, refer back to an attached resume if you haven't already done that, anything like a transcript or a certificate that they might need or want, offer any other information that you might have if you're first aid certified, and that might be helpful or something like that. And if they have any questions that you can answer. Now we'll go over each one of those, adding those 3 paragraphs to your document. Let's bring in our 3 paragraphs, our introduction, our body, which could be a paragraph or a section, and our conclusion. I'm just going to copy and paste these in so you don't have to watch me type. Your introduction should include the reason that you're writing. It should specifically call out the position that you're applying for, how you learned about that position, and you should sound enthusiastic. We want to start off this letter with a strong stance so that it is memorable. We want an extra line spacing between each of the paragraphs, so I'll go ahead and click an extra enter. The body, you can choose which type of body that you want. Do you want to do paragraph style or bullet points, make the match, or the T format? And I'm just going to copy in the body here, which we've gone with the with the bullet style here. An extra space in between, and then our conclusion. Remember in the body that we want to make sure that we communicate our unique qualifications, things that aren't already on the resume, and align your experience and your education directly with the job description. And here's our conclusion. Oh, I think I might have an extra line spacing there. We'll see. And in the conclusion, I want to make sure that I summarize my qualifications, refer to any attachments that might be there or anything that they might need, your transcripts or anything like that, and answer any questions that they might have. Here we put that you could start right away. In your assertive closing, you're going to show your interest in interviewing for the position, thank them, and mention their timely response, and include a complimentary professional closing. The last paragraph that we will insert is the assertive closing, which actually includes that complimentary closing line to sincerely, respectfully, whatever. That last paragraph that we're going to bring in, I'm just going to copy that in. We want to make sure that that shows that you are interested in an interview and thanks them for their timely response. And then we want to make sure that we have our extra line here between that and our closing line, which can be sincerely, respectfully, something like that. Make sure it's professional. Make sure you have 4 spaces between that and your name, and then type in the name. Now, Word sometimes does some weird things with spacing here, and what we know is that the business letter, we need to make sure that the formatting is single spaced on all of the paragraphs with 1 space in between each one of those paragraphs, and then also double space between the last paragraph and between the date and the rest. So what we're going to do is select all of the text in the document and then just make sure that it's not adding any extra spaces, and we'll go in and make sure that we manually do that. So to select the text, we go to the Home tab at the top. And then over on the right side-ish, middle, there's an editing section and a button called Select. Click that Select and choose Select All. Next, we're going to go into the Home tab again, Paragraph section. We want that little corner button, so it looks like a square with an arrow. We're going to make sure that this says single spacing and do not add space between paragraphs. And then click OK. Now, we can probably just size it up with our eyeballs, but we can also, there's a button that will show us exactly what we're looking at. So in the Home tab, Paragraph section, there's a little paragraph button here. And each one of these little markers shows the extra line every time you hit Enter. So we know that we needed 2 after the date. So we need to put our cursor there and do another Enter. We only need 1 here, but we need to have 1 between here, so we'll put our cursor at the end and hit Enter again. We need 1 between that paragraph, and then 1. This paragraph is probably okay because it belongs with that paragraph there, but we do want an extra Enter here, so we'll put our cursor at the end there and hit Enter. Oh, we have to do it twice to break it up, otherwise it becomes a bullet. And we have 1 here, and then we only have 1, 2, 3 between the name and sincerely, and we need 4 there, so we'll do another Enter. And that should clean it up for us. Now we can turn off, unshow the markers, so back to the Home tab in the Paragraph section and unshow. And we wanted 2 lines here, and we only have 1, so we better hit another one there. 2 at the end. There we go, 2 at the end after the last paragraph and 2 underneath the date. Everything else is 1. Last but not least, we'll make sure that there are no errors. Save as a Word document as well as a PDF, and we want to make sure that we have a PDF version to send to an employer if we're going to email it to them. The last step is spell check, save, and print. Spell check is available in Microsoft Word, so we'll definitely run through that one. You could also add Grammarly.com to your ribbon. I have that added to mine. If you're at a computer where you can't add it to the ribbon, or you're using somebody else's computer or something, you can also go to Grammarly.com online and copy and paste in your document, and it'll tell you any changes that it sees. So we'll do both of those. I like to start at the beginning of the document because otherwise Word will finish wherever you started and say, do you want me to start over? So let's click on Control and the Home button on your keyboard, which is between your typing keyboard part and your numbs pad on the right side. That brings me right up to the top of the document here. Next, I'm going to go to the Review tab at the top, and it's on the far left side is ABC. check the document. Now we're using Office 365 and this version looks a little bit different than the older versions, but you would just work through whatever it finds. And I did make a couple of errors so that it would find them for us. So we just click it to see the spelling error. It shows where it is in the page. It brings it up over here. It tells us what it thinks that it should be. If you like that option, you click it. If you don't like it, you would just click ignore. And you could click ignore once or all. All will just ignore this very same issue if it finds it again in the page. So I'm just going to click on culinary because that's how it should be spelled. And it fixes it over here. And then we can come down to our grammar issue. And it found deadline and it thinks it should be one word and it's correct. So I'm going to click on that one as well. It found one vocabulary issue as well. So let's check that out. We'll click vocabulary and it doesn't recognize Javi as a word. And so we're just going to say ignore that one. And now it says you've finished reviewing and we can click OK. I'll click the X to get out of there. To make Grammarly run, if it's in your ribbon, it does have its own ribbon up over here to open it, or you can do it through the Home tab. It takes a minute to open, but it'll open on the side here. And much like Microsoft Word, it will find any issues that it finds, and then it will put them over here for us to check out. So it looks like it just dislikes one. I am able to, it says here, and it thinks it should say it can. If you like their change, you can just click it. If you don't like it, you would click this little garbage can to say no thanks. I'll go ahead and say sure, yeah, can start immediately. And that's all it found. And so we can just click X to get out of there. So having done the spell check, remember too, it always pays to read it again. A word might have an S on the end and it shouldn't, or something like that the system wouldn't catch. So make sure you read it. Reading it out loud really helps. Have a friend read it. Bring it to job service. We can look it over for you as well. Next, we'll want to save. So we want to save as a Word document so you can make edits later, and also as a PDF, especially for emailing. If you're going to email it to a business, it's definitely better to email a PDF, because if they should open it in a program like Google Docs, it might look completely different. Your margins might look wonky. It might print onto the second page when you didn't mean it to. If you send it as a PDF, it will look like you expected it to look. So to save as a Word doc, we're going to go to the File tab at the top, go down to Save As. We're going to click Browse to choose where we want to put the document. Make sure that you're putting the document where you're going to be able to find it. If you wanted to put it on your flash drive, choose flash drive. I'm putting mine in my desktop. And then change the name of your document. You do want to have your name in it, or at least your first initial last name, for the sake of the business, but also it doesn't hurt to put the position title in there. That's helpful too. And anything that might help you to remember what this is. If you're applying to 15 different jobs, it's nice to have something that identifies. So I'll put Javi McJobster ABC Culinary and save. And after you save, it should change the name up here to whatever you named that. Next, we'll go to the File tab. Go down to Save As, or Save a Copy. Go down to Browse. And this is changing it to a PDF. So we're going to name it the same and everything, but down here where it says Save As Type, we can change that Word document to a PDF and then save. Depending on how the computer's set up, it may or may not open a PDF so that you can take a look at that. This one's going to. That's how it will look for us. There's a bit of white space on our page. It might be good for us to change the font maybe to a 12-point font so that it takes up a little bit more space. And we could do that by just left clicking and hold. And then change that in the Home tab font section. And there we go. Yep, all fits on one page. Looking pretty good. And I can click resave. It was actually auto-saved, so it would save it for me. And then if you wanted to print a version for yourself, you certainly could do that from here too, which is the File tab, Print. and then just find your printer and click print. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to contact us at Job Service. You can find your local Job Service office by going to montanaworks.gov, clicking on Find Local Job Service Office, and when you click on the job service nearest you, it will give you our hours of operation, phone number, and our address. We are here to help.